Hello everyone, I'm Andy Morris with Jerry Becker. Today we're going to dive in some of the recent enhancements that Sage Intacct rolled out for their financial management platform. So let's jump into our series called Smart Moves, What's New in Sage Intacct. This video is to highlight one of the features in the Sage Intacct 2025 Release 3, namely Customer Refunds. So I just wanted to go through the quick navigation. If you hadn't seen this, using the house, click on Release Notes. And here, just simply by going into Financials and Accounts Receivable, what we'll see is Customer Refunds is the first item on the list. Now, let's go look at it. There was some setup that was involved I'll put at the very end of the video, but let's just take you straight into Accounts Receivables. And notice I am inside an entity here. And so under Accounts Receivable, there's now a new feature called Refunds. One of the things I want to point out is that I'm going to choose a customer, John Jones. And if you look below here, you'll see that there was nothing to refund, even though there's a balance of $1,500 and some change. All I'm doing is making a point that what it's doing, it's refunding something that's already there in the system for that customer. And now let's take a look at what that could be. So again, if I go in and click on Plus Refund, but in this case, I'm going to choose a customer that I've set up for this video. The customer name is Roland Foods. And I've gone through several places where the amounts to be refunded could come from. The very first one really was this what's called negative invoice. It's the credit memo that came from the sales entry. So a credit memo was added for the amount of $800, and so now that made that available to be refunded. Now, in most cases, I think people agree that refunds used when a customer is no longer a customer, but there's a credit balance. So it's a way to basically go and get it off the books, and with the books then doing the appropriate postings. Look at the other places where refunds could come from. An advance. So a customer here, I'll put in an advance for that same customer of $1,000. An adjustment. So you go through and make an adjustment directly in accounts receivables, which is, you could argue that's just like putting a credit memo in over in sales order. But if you're not using sales order entry, then of course the adjustment here, and you see that $1,200. And finally, an overpayment. What I found interesting about this is that the transaction amount is $21,000, but that payment amount was $20,000 was applied. So the overpayment was really only the remaining $1,000 that was considered an overpayment. Another feature that you may note here is that as you click on these and it picks the refund amount, it's bringing in the total amount, but you do have the option of going and bringing that lower. So you can do partial refunds on these, right? Now let's just take one of these, the $1,000 for that advance. All it really remains is now to go through and post that customer refund. And then we'll take a look and see, well, what was the accounting effect? Of course, that was configured. So part of the setup of using this. So we'll see that it created, number one, a refund number. In other words, I've set up a document mask. It says I want them to always begin with the CR for customer refund, and then it's using a system counter to go put the next number in. You'll notice it's got a new status, one called refunded, but look at the posting details. What you'll see is that I set it up to where it's taken a disbursement journal to create that, and you'll notice that it is basically using the setup that I told it to as far as where to debit that $1,000 and credit that $1,000. So with all that being said, let's now take a look at some of the things that had to been done to set this up. And I'll go back, see we're in the entity level. I'll go back over here into the top level, and let's take a quick look. What were some of the requirements? And one of the nice things that the Sage Intacct group does is they run you through the setup steps over in the release notes. So take advantage of those. Now there's a checkbox that had to happen first, and this was a tricky setup, and I'll tell you why. Is that you first have to come in and check this box called Enable the Recording of Customer Refunds. And the reason I'm pointing that out to you because once that's checked, it then opens up some boxes both below and above that need to be populated. You see here, it wants to know how often, a customer refund would occur for summary frequency. And then there was another place, and I believe that's right here. See, customer refunds. Now this, you probably would want to set up your own journal type here, but I just reused the one called Cash Receipts Journal. So that was important to note as far as that setup go. And then there's permissions based upon your user role on the setup that would occur. Okay, so hopefully this has been really informative to you. This again is focused just on a new functionality referred to as customer refunds, and just walking you through some examples of where refunds would come from, whether it was an adjustment, a credit memo, an overpayment. So it could be from different places, and then of course how it could then go through and get posted and then affect your general ledger. Thanks everyone, I appreciate your attention.